me from my winter hell. I've got candles and candy. I can be your daddy if you only let me creep into your prison cell. Hey baby, can you tell I'm not a criminal? Your choice is seminal. I want you to stay true to what's right for you. No matter who or know what will others say. Just find your way and try to stay true. Just speak low, stand in your row. Try not to show this life's a show. Try not to glow. Way down below, oh, it's a lot of woe. And that's not a place where you would like to go. I've got cigarettes and brandy, which could come in handy if you just help me loosen up my hand grenades fuse. Baby, don't refuse my truth, but it's up to you now to choose. I want you to stay true to what's right for you. No matter who or know what will others say. Just find your way and try to stay true. I want you to stay true to what's right for you. No matter who or know what will others say. Just find your way and try to stay true, 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 true,
Good morning, everyone. I am so sorry. I forgot. Yes, today there is no live testimony. I fixed the title. We're just going to go over what we didn't get to see yesterday, but also, and before that, give me just 1 second. I want to pull something up for you guys really quickly, respective to Megan Boswell. Let me just fix this really quick. I've already got it ready to go. Let me see. Give me 1 moment. Here it is. All right. All right. So, just really quickly before we get started, what little chicky nugget pot pie is having. Yesterday, I would like to apologize for yesterday as well for me having the Dums then too, because I knew this and I don't know why my brain wouldn't let me say it. My little chicky nugget pot pie Esquire is having an echocardiogram tomorrow or today. Oh my God. I need to just go back to bed. She's having an electrocardiogram today. She's also having her pre-surgery consult today. But yesterday, when they went, when the court took forever to come back, and I was just like, let's just call it a wash and we'll just, review it at some other point. I went over to my daughter texted me and she's like, hey, Mom, do you have what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. And she said, do you have a bunch of bright nail polish colors to bring over. And I was like, yes, say no more. So yesterday I went over to my daughter's and we did little chicky nuggy pot pie Esquire's nails. We colored. We played the memory game, where you flip the cards over. She's so good at that. I'm so proud of her. We did letters. Then we went to the Chick-fil-A, and then she came over to my house for dessert, which was one scoop, one little toddler-sized scoop of Rocky Road, and as Chicky Nugget Popeye says, vanilla ice cream. Then we chilled out, we hung out together, and then because my husband was at work all day, she helped me make dinner for Papa, and her job was to grate the cheese, and she did a fantastic job. And then after all that was said and done, I went back over there and hung out, and we all, she took her shower and got all cleaned up. Then we put her to bed. So I got to stay for that, and then I came home. No, it's an echocardiogram. Yeah, echocardiogram. The one with the Doppler, the one where they use the little probe thingy on the top of the chest. That's echo. Yeah, I looked it up yesterday because I was like, wait a minute, what's wrong with me? Why can't I think of the name of this? And oh my gosh, thank you, Neat, for reminding me. I forgot this too. Oh, I got to show you guys something else before I forget. So she loved the pears. She said, oh my God, Granny D, they're so good. All right, let me show you guys something else. Neat made this for me yesterday, and it is adorbs. And I showed it to Livy, and she loved it. So let me get it for you really quickly. Here we go. All right. Okay, hold on. Let me get it. Let me show you guys. It's super cute. This is the cutest thing ever. All right, Neat made this for me. Look what she made, you guys. She made a little chicky nuggy pot pie. Let me take this down. Hold on. Let me hide this really quick. Yes, the ultrasound kind, Sarah. Yes. So that's an echocardiogram. Look, it's a little chicky nuggy pot pie. Isn't that the cutest? She's got a little chicken outfit. My goodness, I can't. It's so cute. It's so cute. It's so good. Thank you so much, Neat. It's just the best thing ever. And she loved it. Absolutely loved it. She's like, it's a chicky nugget pot pie, Granny. Oh, she was so cute. Okay. So she's having that. Then they're doing the surgery consultation. And then I don't know. After that, so Monday is Memorial Day, and I know that her rheumatologist wants to be around when she has her surgery, and she, I think, takes her vacation like this. I think the 6th of June. So anytime now she'll be getting. They'll probably schedule it today. So I'll find out today when the actual lung biopsy is going to take place. So there's that. And I got to say, you guys, first, there's a couple things I want to say. First, I want to thank you guys so much, because just you guys showing up and when I go live gives me an opportunity to talk, and it offers me a distraction, because I'm not so concerned about today. But I am very worried about this lung biopsy. I know that it's a serious procedure. I wish that my mom was still alive, and here's why. Because my mom was a histologist for over 30 years, and she would be able to tell me exactly what they're going to do and exactly what they're looking for. And she would be able to put my mind at ease. And it's these times. I mean, there are tons of times when I miss my mom, but it's in these moments. My mom was so good at explaining circumstances like these. And whenever I had a question about like autopsy findings, she would ask the pathologist for me and then come back and tell me the answer. And then sometimes when we lived in the same state, because she moved to Arizona, but when we lived in the same state, she would like sometimes I would go to, see her at work or whatever, and she would take me back and the pathologists that she worked with were always, I mean, I grew up with them, so they were just always so nice, and they would answer my questions and follow-up questions, and it's just in these moments that I miss my mom, and I also miss my mom in these moments because I know what she would tell me. She would say, we're going to get through this, Jen. It's going to be okay. I know they do this they do this every single day. And I know that they're not doing it every single day on Livy, but they do it they know what they're doing, and it's going to be fine. And then you're going to have answers, and then you're going to know. And, so I miss my mom when sometimes, I miss her for the comfort. I miss her for a lot of things. Sprinkled Donut, thank you, babe. I got your email yesterday, but I was with Livy, and I said, oh, well, I'll email her back. And then you guys know how I roll. Shiny object. Who knows what got me distracted? Hell, it could have been a bird. I don't know. And then I totally forgot. So Sprinkled Donut says, Jen, I was able to renew my membership on a regular computer, so it must be my stupid phone. Prayers for your nuggie. It will all be okay. Thank you, guys. Hey, MK, good to see you. good to see you. Oh, Sissy. Sissy says the cheeky nugget pot pie is so cute. I broke the law and looked at my phone while driving, something I don't normally do. Well, I don't do that again, but it is so cute. Hi, Shauna. So let me say hi to all of you guys, and then we'll get started with what I was going to cover today. So good morning, Sarah Bellum. Good morning, Cuff You. Good morning, Sissy's mom. Good to see you, Jen. Good morning, Sprinkled Donut. Good morning, Neat Noodle. Hold on, I got to scroll a second. Good morning, Tosh. Let's see. Good morning, M. Kylene. Good morning, Shauna. It's good to see you. Good morning, Sky Flash Photographer. It's good to see you too. All right. So what I wanted to show you guys is what's going on with the Megan Boswell, because I went to look that up at the same time. And there's this. Now, I have no idea what it says. I haven't seen it yet, but let's hear it. It's quick. Let me turn it up. All right.
Jeremy, thank you. Megan Boswell was handed a guilty verdict and sentenced to life after being convicted in the murder of her daughter, Evelyn Boswell. Her sentencing hearing was originally scheduled for tomorrow, but according to Sullivan County Court Clerk Bobby Russell, her hearing has been rescheduled. As of now, there is no set date yet.
A disturbing case out of Arkansas. A married couple now behind bars facing serious charges for the alleged.
Jeremy, thank you. Megan Boswell was handed a guilty verdict and sentenced to life after being convicted in the murder of her daughter, Evelyn Boswell. Her sentencing hearing was originally scheduled for tomorrow, but according to Sullivan County Court Clerk Bobby Russell, her hearing has been rescheduled. As of now, there is no set date yet.
All right. So I don't know.
Megan Boswell is facing.
I don't know what that is about. Why? There we go. I don't know why they would do that. I don't know. Maybe the pre-sentencing investigation wasn't complete. Maybe there was a scheduling conflict. Something came up last minute with one of the attorneys. Who knows? Also, I think she should get extra time just for A, wearing that bow to sentencing, and B, for us having to see that bow again, because that's the footage that they have. That's not the news's fault. That's the footage that they have. So I'm not going to blame them, but I am going to blame Megan Boswell for making us see that hideous bow again. So I don't know when her sentencing is, but I'll keep on top of it. Also, other stuff that I've been keeping on top of. Let me just check again because I haven't checked this morning. So maybe we have something. Let me see this. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I can try this too. Let me just see. I'm just going to Google his name without anything behind it. No opinion, no like judge's opinion, no nothing. Let's just see. Let me see if they have anything in the group. Is this a public group? Yeah, there's nothing, you guys. So, as far as that goes, I'm keeping up with that too. I'm also keeping up with I'm so done with you, MK. Okay, MK says, when will criminals learn dressing like Laura Ingalls for court does not work in showing you're innocent? No, it doesn't. Cut it out, women. Stop it. Oh, how cute. Carolyn Cooper says prayers for a successful procedure for your little. I'm headed to kindergarten graduation to see mine. Great content. Oh, thank you so much, babe. Thank you. And how exciting. Kindergarten graduation is the best. I'll never forget when my youngest sons, I don't have a middle son. He's the youngest son. When my youngest son had his kindergarten, I remember all of their kindergarten graduation. Okay. But the reason my youngest son's sticks out is because they played the song from Dumbo, Baby Mine. OMG. I was doing so great, having a great time. Everything was just, they were singing their little songs. They were just being adorable. They had their little graduation caps and gowns on. They were adorable. Y'all, they played that song and your girl lost it. I mean, crying, both eyes leaking. It was a lot. It was a lot. So yeah. All right. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over what happened yesterday because I did miss some of it. And I obviously want to go over it with you guys. But let's just see what you guys think. Okay. Let me turn the closed captions on and let me play this and then we'll talk. Okay. Here we go.
Taking a witness out of order, I apologize. We've got a witness here. Sometimes we take witnesses out of order. Ms. Hanley will be back later for the rest of her testimony, but we've got a witness here that we'll call out of order. Thank you. Mr. Brennan, thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth calls Dr. Wolf.
No, Lisa, apparently your girl, that'd be me, missed the memo that there is no, hold on a second, that there is no, there we go. There's no court today, I guess. According to Judge Bev, even though she spent 2 hours yesterday morning grilling the jurors, they're on schedule. So she decided, let's take a day off. So we're just going to cover what happened yesterday. But I actually think I should rewind just a little bit. All right. Well, maybe not. I guess she just doesn't, whatever. All right. Let's just play it and keep going. And also I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. All right. Okay. Here we go. I know, Lisa. I don't know what Judge Bev is thinking. She's like, 4-day weekend. Now 5. Hell yeah. That's an extra day at the karaoke bar.
You solemnly swear the evidence of the court and jury in the case now and hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spell your first name and last name for the court reporter?
Sure. My first name is Isaac, A-I-Z-I-K. It's phonetic. Last name is Wolf, W-O-L-F, like the real thing.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a brain surgeon.
Is there a special part of medicine that you study?
Well, my main interest in brain surgery is brain tumors and trigeminal neuralgia. But I also specialize in movement disorders. I do pediatrics and adults.
Are you an active working neurosurgeon?
I am a very active working neurosurgeon. I get up every day at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, 5 days a week. I take call 300 days out of 365 days a year.
Did you work yesterday?
Yes, I did.
What type of work did you do yesterday?
I did 2 brain surgeries yesterday.
I would just like to point out that Brennan, did you check his LinkedIn? Now, I believe this guy is exactly who he says he is, but I mean, you have to ask that question now because look at what they did with Shannon Withwen and Burgess. I mean, come on, Commonwealth, get it together. You should have not tried this a second time. That's all.
Are you working tomorrow?
I have 4 surgeries scheduled for tomorrow, which is why this is a little bit delayed for me, and I have 4 on Friday.
And what type of surgeries do you have tomorrow and Friday?
I have 3 brain tumors, 1 trigeminal neuralgia, and on Friday I have 4 patients with movement disorders.
You're here today as a witness. How much of your practice, how much % of your income is from being a consultant or a witness for a case?
Probably less than 1%. I don't do this for a living.
I want you to take us through some of your education and background. Could you share with us where you went to medical school and where you graduated from?
I went to Yale Medical School. I graduated summa cum laude.
Was that in 1981 that you graduated?
Correct.
After medical school, did you begin internships in medical residency?
I did an internship at Hennepin County Medical Center, which is a trauma center in Minneapolis. I then did 5 years of neurosurgical residency at the University of Minnesota.
And was that in Minnesota?
Correct, in Minneapolis.
Is there something about...
See, this is why I can't be pausing too much because Brennan, do you listen to the answer that your witness gives or are you just reading from your list of questions? I want to say good morning as Steph sells stuff by the seashore. Good to see you, babe. Also, good morning to you, Lisa. Thank you for being here, both of you guys. I appreciate that. All right, let's keep going. And I'll try not to interrupt too much, but Brennan, do try and keep up.
That hospital that has some specialty?
It was one of the #1 training centers for chairmen in neurosurgery at the time.
I lied. I forgot to say good morning to Becky P. Good morning, Becky P. It's good to see you, babe. All right, now I'm done for real.
Did you, in your residency and in your fellowships, do any work or study in pathology?
During your residency as a neurosurgical resident, you do 6 months in neurology, you do 3 months of neuroradiology, you do 3 months in pathology, which includes autopsies on brains. And then you do rotations through a trauma center as a chief resident, through a VA hospital, and then ultimately at the university hospital for elective cases. We also do 6 months of pediatric neurosurgical residency.
Did you do a fellowship at New York University?
Yeah, at NYU, I did a fellowship before I went to the University of Maryland as a professor in brain transplantation. The interest was in using cells to create dopamine centers in rat brains with the concept of Parkinson's being curable with transplantation.
I'd like you to take us through some of your faculty positions and so you can share with us some of the progression of your training and experience. And did you begin at the University of Maryland Hospital?
Yes. In 1987, the University of Maryland recruited me to start their epilepsy surgical program and skull-based program. And then part of our responsibilities as assistant professors was to cover shock trauma.
Could you explain for us what shock trauma means and whether the University of Maryland Hospital was a shock trauma hospital?
So the University of Maryland and shock trauma were actually 2 separate entities when I started. A man named Cowley had basically developed the concept of the golden hour. So prior to Dr. Cowley, most trauma was just taken locally. That meant as a community hospital, if a patient had been in a motor vehicle accident, they needed an orthopedic surgeon, they had to call the orthopedic surgeon in, could take 15 minutes, could take 3 hours. The same thing for a vascular surgeon, the same thing for a neurosurgeon. Dr. Cowley came up with the concept that you needed a center that was strictly for trauma, and every attending had to be in the hospital 24/7. So that was the concept of shock trauma back in the 80s. When I got there, we were transitioning from a very small center to a 125-bed hospital that was completely committed to trauma.
In that experience, in the years you worked there, did you have an opportunity to treat a number of people with brain injuries?
We treated well over 100 patients a month, basically, with brain injuries at shock trauma, along with spinal cord injuries.
Did you perform surgeries in different types of brain trauma and brain injuries?
Yes.
After Maryland in 1993, did you move to Miami Neuroscience Center?
Yes. In 1993, I left academics. I went into private practice in Miami, and I started the Miami Neuroscience Center. We were the first private community hospital to have what's called the Gamma Knife. So we were the 13th in the country, but the only one that was non-university based. And Gamma Knife radiosurgery is using radiation to operate on the brain.
Are you presently the director of the Miami Neuroscience Center at Larkin Hospital?
Yes, I am.
Do you conduct a number of surgeries a year there?
Correct. So I spent 19 years at Doctors Hospital, then we moved to Larkin Hospital 13 years ago, developing the new radiosurgical unit called ZAP, and also another fancy machine called high-frequency ultrasound to treat the movement disorders.
You've noted that you have a number of professional memberships. I don't want to go through all of them. I'd like to point out a few. Are you a professional member of the American Association of Neurological Surgeons?
Yes.
Are you a member, a fellow American of the College of Surgeons?
Yes.
Are you a member of North American Skull-Base Society?
Yes.
And is that brain-related?
It is.
Are you a member of the Society for Neuro-Oncology?
Yes.
Are you a member of over, or at least 34 different professional memberships?
Yes.
In your career, have you engaged in research?
Yes.
Has that research focused or centered on brain injury?
Yes, it has.
Is some of your research as a principal investigator for THAM treatment of brain tissue, acidosis, and severely head-injured patients?
Yes.
Did that research and as a principal investigator help you in your diagnosis and treatment of brain injuries?
It actually was in the treatment of severe head injuries, patients who are unconscious, the concept of trying to relieve the increased intracranial pressure that occurs from the injury and to increase blood flow, thereby increasing oxygen to the brain.
Did you also serve as principal investigator for research for the PEG, SOD, and severe head injury?
Yes.
Could you describe that very briefly?
Basically the same, one of the biggest problems in brain injury is the fact that blood flow ceases to exist as the brain swells up. And so one of the things we try to do is preserve the neurons by making sure that they have enough oxygen and blood flow to them. All these are agents that try to assist that.
I won't go through all of your research and principal investigator roles, but I want to ask you about one more. And that is, did you serve as principal investigator relative to the IRB protocol for brain pathology?
Yes.
And what did that do? What was that about?
It was about looking at what happens after a brain injury to blood vessels and tissue as the intracranial pressure increases in the brain.
Have you been part of publications of a number of different books?
Yes.
I won't list parts of all 16 books, but can I point out a few?
Sure.
Were you the author of a book chapter regarding head injury, difficult medical management?
Yes.
Were you the author of a book chapter on pediatric neurosurgical emergencies?
Yes.
Were you the author of a book chapter on complications of head injuries in adults?
Yes.
Were you the author of a book chapter, Imaging of Craniocerebral Trauma?
Yes.
Were you an author of a book chapter in emergency room assessment of the head injury patient?
Yes.
Were you the author of a book chapter, Intracranial Injuries?
Yes.
I won't list or ask you about the other book chapters that you've been the author of. Have you been involved in journal articles?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you just about a few of the 70 journal articles that you have published.
Your Honor, objection.
So go ahead and ask the question without a comment, please.
Were you an author of a journal article, Intracranial Pressure in Non-Traumatic Ischemia and Hypoxic Cerebral Insults?
Yes.
Were you the author of a journal article, Post-Traumatic Cerebral Infarction?
Yes.
Were you the author of the journal?
I don't believe it's infraction. I think it's infarction, but okay, Frank, Frank, keep going.
Fractures of the Clivus?
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about that paper?
We used thin-cut CT scans to identify fractures of the skull base. Prior to this, prior to CT scans, it was very difficult to actually identify radiologically a skull fracture with plain x-rays. The idea was to see if we could identify them more clearly, and so we classified them and delineated them in the paper and discussed the outcomes that were relative to those type of injuries.
In the last journal article I'll ask you about, were you the author of a journal article regarding acute traumatic midbrain hemorrhage?
Yes.
Were you the presenter in a number of presentations regarding head injury and brain injury?
Yes.
You've listed 93. I'll ask you just about a few. Were you a presenter in fractures of the clivus, clinical and radiographic features?
Yes.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Clivus.
Thank you. Were you the presenter in acute head injury?
Yes.
And a separate presentation, fractures of the clivus, classifications, and clinical features?
Yes.
Do you lecture?
Yes.
Do you have peer-reviewed publications?
Yes. That was one of them.
Thank you. And are you heavily involved in clinical research?
Right now, my research is more based on radiosurgical techniques and outcomes.
Over your career and your study and your clinical experience, have you treated different types of brain injuries?
Yes.
Are you familiar with a number of different types of brain injuries?
Yes, we still treat them.
Were you asked to review materials relative to this case?
Yes.
And do you recall the materials that you reviewed?
Yes.
Could you share with us some of the materials that you reviewed?
I reviewed the chief medical examiner's assessment of the case. I reviewed pictures that I'm assuming the medical examiner took of the autopsy, and I reviewed the report from the forensic pathologist.
And before I ask you about your review of specific materials and your opinions in this case,
When's the last time you spoke to Hank Brennan? When's the last time he emailed you when you guys discussed testimony? I mean, come on. Get to it, Hank. Let's go.
is there a benefit to your clinical experience in studying brain injuries as opposed to the experience you had as a fellow simply with pathology?
Okay, let me just also say this. I don't think that John O'Keefe's injuries are actually in question, okay? What this gentleman needs to do, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do it because I didn't, right as his testimony began, that's when my daughter texted me and I went and hung out with my daughter and my granddaughter yesterday. So I have no idea what this guy's about to say, but the fact of the matter is you're going to have to prove that those brain injuries came from being struck by a vehicle. But even if you prove that, even if you testify to that, the Commonwealth, I don't know if you're aware of how trials work, Hank Brennan. This is very disconcerting to me. You need to prove that Karen hit him. And I found something yesterday, and I want to play it for you guys, but I'm not sure if I can. So I'll just tell you about it. Yesterday, I found a short that came from a clip from the ID channel when they were doing Karen Reed's, like their little docuseries. And it's Alan Jackson, and he's talking about the trooper that was there when Karen Reed's vehicle was loaded on the tow truck. Okay. And he testified, this was obviously in the first trial, that Karen's right rear taillight was cracked. It was not completely missing. That's huge. All right, let's keep going.
Well, I think that for the jury to understand, as a clinician understands the process from the time the injury occurs till the patient either leaves the hospital or dies. And it's a process. And as a neurosurgeon, I have a tremendous amount of experience with that, if that's what you're asking me.
Yes. And so, Doctor, you reviewed a number of items of information in this case. Did you have an opportunity to review photographs of a laceration to Mr. John O'Keefe's head?
Yes, I did.
With the court's permission, I'm going to ask to display Exhibit 160.
Okay.
Dr. Wolf, I'm going to ask you to take a look at this photograph. Have you seen this photograph before?
Yes.
I want you to explain to us what you're seeing here and take us through the process of your observations.
Well, what we're seeing is an approximate 1.5 inch laceration with bridging tissue and contusions and abrasions. To us, that's just a classic blunt trauma injury. There's nothing other than just vanilla about it. This is what happens when soft tissue hits a solid ground. The skin tears apart a bit, but not through and through. As you can see, there's the bridging. You can see all the bruising or contusions and just the tear, a little bit serrated along the edges.
Thank you. If you could take that down.
I mean, I think
Dr.
that.
Wolf, as a result of that
Hold
wound,
on a
did you-
minute. I'm going to tell you what comes to my mind, okay? What comes to my mind is the fight scene from Friday when Debo gets knocked the fuck out, okay? Yeah, he hit the ground. We need to understand how this came from a vehicle, Brennan, a vehicle, a car, an automobile, something. Come on, bro. What are you doing? This is a big fat waste of this gentleman's time.
Did you have a chance to
And
further
ours.
look at information provided to you about the actual inside the skull of Mr. John O'Keefe?
Yes, it was the pictures that I was reviewing showed a non-depressed skull fracture extending linearly through the clivus and into the frontal fossa of Mr. O'Keefe over the orbital roofs. He had fractures along the temporal fossa as well. So it was a classic linear basilar skull fracture.
Is basal skull fracture a
It's
characterization?
basically the base of your skull is what it encompasses. So the opening at the very bottom is what we call the foramen magnum that connects your brainstem to your spinal cord. And then as your brainstem goes up, it goes into the different skull areas that, talk about what we call the cerebral cortexes, your occipital lobe, your temporal lobes over here, and then your frontal lobes.
So can you walk us through what happens when someone incurs this type of injury to the back of the head, how it happens, and what are the next steps for a person?
So what happens is, you fall backwards, and the linear acceleration starts to take you back down with gravity. The skull hits the ground. It gets, in layman's terms, smashed a little bit. And then the brain moves forward as a response to that. And it moves forward because you have cerebral spinal fluid and because you have the deceleration, acceleration again. As it does, your skull, if you were to look inside your skull, it's like mini mountains along your temporal bones and your frontal bones. So the brain is being thrust forward at a fairly good speed, and it's getting bruised. You can think of it as if you took a hammer to your thumb. It's really turning black and blue. Those are the contusions. And so the temporal poles and the frontal poles are getting contusions because of that. At the same time, you have a space called the subarachnoid space. And I'm sure they're going to hear about the subarachnoid hemorrhage. And that space is it's very clear, thin membrane that covers all of your brain and all of your spinal cord. And normally, you really don't see it unless you open up the brain and you're operating. But when you either have a traumatic event like this, where little vessels are pulling apart underneath that membrane, or, for example, the classic, when you have an aneurysm burst, the space that the aneurysm bleeds to is the subarachnoid space.
What is happening? Is Judge Bev talking in the background? Is that what I'm hearing? Can you guys hear that? Am I having auditory hallucinations? I don't have another window open. I checked before I paused. Can you guys hear that?
The other thing that occurs in trauma like this is you can get a subdural. So the dura is the membrane that covers the whole brain and also right down your spinal canal. And it's a very thin membrane that looks like very thin leather. And in that space between the brain and the dura can be a lot of veins that go towards a central vein called the sagittal sinus. And if those tear, you have a venous hemorrhage from, which is not arterial, so it's not quick, but that can develop into a subdural as well. If you tear a portion of your brain as well, and you get a little arterial bleeds, that could create a much faster subdural hematoma. And so when you look at the pathology, the autopsy of his brain, You're looking at a subarachnoid hemorrhage. You're looking at a subdural hemorrhage. Neither one of them, which was huge or would have required surgery, as well as the contusions that I described in his frontal poles, in his temporal poles, and then the original bang, which was in the occipital area. These are all findings that you would see on a CT scan and an MRI scan without requiring an autopsy if he had made it to the emergency room.
So Skyflash Photographer says she's slipping through the Lane Bryant Summer Collection catalog. Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure she's flipping through the karaoke list of songs. She's picking out what she's going to do at the bar. But she could be flipping through the Lane Bryant catalog. I don't know. Something tells me I think she shops at Belk.
Want to take a step back?
I don't know what made me think of that.
You said that this laceration on the back of his head was caused by a fall. Could this be caused by a fall landing on hard ground?
Yes, I mean, like I said, it's a classic blunt trauma laceration.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether this injury, the laceration and the basal fracture, was caused by Mr. O'Keefe falling backwards on the ground?
My opinion is that that's what caused his whole injury.
The pattern of the laceration, do you have an opinion whether that is consistent with hitting the cold, hard ground?
Objection, Your Honor. Could we have
He's already asked this, and Cat Bama, hey, I shop at Belk. I ain't knocking Belk. I'm just saying I think that's where she shops. Exactly. Steph sells stuff by the seashore. This is falling backwards after being punched. Right. You've asked him 37 different ways. Not really. He's only asked it twice, but hitting the cold, hard ground. How did he hit the cold, hard ground? That's the question, you jackass. And Cat Bam, I hope you're not offended, babe. I promise. I ain't got nothing against Belk. I do have a lot against Judge Bev, though. I'm not going to lie. She gets on my nerves. She's rude. She ain't got no couth. She interrupts. She's over there moaning and sighing and huffing and a puffing into the microphone. Bev, mute your mic. Rude. All right, here we go.
sidebar on that, please?
So I'm sustaining the objection, so no sidebar.
Your Honor.
Do you have an opinion, doctor, about whether that laceration on the back of his head was caused by a particular movement?
Well, the only way he could get this kind of an injury was to fall backwards, hit the back of his head, and then the resulting, energy forces going into his brain, into his base of his skull.
Belk is, I think, a southern store. I've only seen them in Texas, Georgia, and I think I saw one a long time ago in the Floridas.
Would that type of
Hey, Rachel, good morning.
laceration require Mr. O'Keefe to have hit a line type or a ridge type object?
A ridge type of object?
Yes.
No, I mean, like I said, the tearing of the skin in that fashion, you could look it up, would be just a classic blunt trauma injury.
Is there anything about that injury that would suggest to you it had to have been something sharp or ridge-like to cause?
Objection, Your Honor. Begin request kindly a sidebar on this.
All right, we'll come to
Thank you.
That's right, Judge Bev. You let Mr. Alessi come up there. He has some questions. Let Mr. Alessi come to the sidebar.
Anything about the pattern of, as we were discussing, Dr. Wolf, you said this is a classic fall backwards. Is there anything about the pattern of that laceration that would suggest that there was a ridge or a line type edge that caused that wound?
Not necessarily.
And have you seen, in your experience, similar types of lacerations and breaks caused by falling on hard ground?
Yes, you can see that both in the occipital region. You can see it if patients fall on the forehead. The skin tears, they're still bridging, and then they get bruises.
Some of your work was in Minnesota?
Correct.
Was it a colder part of Minnesota?
Very cold part of Minnesota. It's Minneapolis.
I'm sorry. Did you often see these type of injuries there?
Yes, I mean, we took care of a trauma center, Hennepin County.
Excuse me, Doctor. Brennan, are you not... seriously? Is it cold there? Oh my God. You asked... I understand why you need to lay the foundation. I get that the cold part of Minnesota. All Minnesota is cold. What are you talking about? They get a whole entire winter. It's the way he asks the questions. That's my issue. It's not the question being asked so much. It is the way he asks the question. Like, it's almost like somebody, these are not his questions. It's like somebody else wrote the questions down and he's just asking them. I don't like it.
Very frequently, patients that are drunk fall down on ice sidewalks and could develop, lacerations in their head, epidurals, which are blood clots above the dura because they fracture a bone in the temporal area and they can get a bleed from a fractured artery. And it happens when people are shoveling snow and have a heart attack and fall backwards. So there are various ways that people fall, resulting in head injuries and lacerations to their forehead or to different areas of their head.
Is there a way that if they got into a fight and they were knocked out, knocked down, or struck in the back of the head, could that also cause that injury? If they were struck in the back of the head with, I don't know, a baseball bat, a snow shovel, a regular shovel. Jesus.
Can somebody suffer this type of injury simply by falling backwards?
Absolutely.
You had taken us through the process of falling backwards and then talked about what happens to the brain. Can I ask you a couple of detailed questions about that?
Sure.
When you explained that the brain upon impact then shifts forward and hits the front of the skull, is there a medical term for that process?
Well, the medical term is a coup contre coup injury. So the coup is when you first hit. In this case, it was the back of the head, as summarized by the laceration in the back of the head, and the contusions that the pathologist and the ME found in the back of the brain. And then the brain shifts forward, and as it's traveling at a certain velocity, because it's thrust forward on the floor of the base of the skull, it's getting bumped. And it's getting, again, you can think of it as a hammer hitting a thumb. It's getting black and blue in the areas that are sharpest.
To me, I'm going to tell you what it sounds like. To me, what he's describing, and because I cannot and I will not look at the photographs, but I just can't in this case. I don't know what it is. Usually I'm good about that kind of stuff, but for whatever reason, I don't want to look at these photographs. Anywho, to me, what it sounds like he's describing is what we frequently see in shaken baby syndrome. Okay. And the problem that I have with this is it possible to get those types of injuries from being struck by a vehicle? Yes. But what is missing is if a vehicle hit him, okay, I would expect to see other injuries, other internal injuries on his body as well from actually being struck by the vehicle, because as the state alleges, she was going in reverse at 24 miles an hour. That's a fast backup. Okay. Anywho, that's like some Dukes of Hazzard level backing up. Let me just say it like that. That's like some stunt driving backing up. Okay. And we watched her back out of John O'Keefe's garage. She definitely wasn't going 24 miles an hour. And it's the absence of those other injuries that make me question this whole scenario.
Are there symptoms that result of the process coup contre coup?
This is clinically, it varies. I mean, you can go from anywhere from a simple concussion where you sort of are unaware of what happened, but you're still awake, you're confused, all the way to, ultimately being in a coma.
Can this type of injury, the coup contre coup, and what you see in the review of your files, could this type of injury happen from an attack by a weapon, like a bat or a hammer?
Well, he did not have a depressed skull fracture. So any focal hit like that would more likely than not have caused a depressed skull fracture. Blunt trauma, the way he had, the assumption, would cause the coup contre coup without a depressed skull fracture.
When the coup contre coup process happens with the skull fracture, does anything happen to the front of the skull?
Well, you're asking me, does...
Hold on. I have a question. Don't the people that think that this was not a um, that John's death was not the result of being hit by a vehicle. Um, I seem to recall from the first trial, but maybe I'm misremembering. Weren't they in the basement? Is it possible that he hit his head? Do they have a fireplace down there? Is it possible that he hit his head on the fireplace, the hearth? Isn't that what that brick part is called in front of the fireplace? You know, that's like you can actually sit on it. You know what I'm talking about? Let me think on that.
The forces, depending on how hard they are, can generate fracture lines all the way to the anterior fossa. So you can have fractures along the lateral temporal area. You can have fractures along the orbital roof. The orbital roof is very thin. And so those forces can go all the way to that area.
Did you see any sign of orbital fractures in Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, he had both the ME and the pictures taken, and the neuropathologist mentioned fractures of the orbital roof.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how those fractures occurred?
Thanks
from the trauma.
in the chat. I
Could you
appreciate
just explain
that.
a little bit how that would happen?
Well,
Yes, this is a good point too. Sky Flash photographer says we won't know, Jen, because they did a complete renovation. Okay, hearth is the correct term. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. This is going to be a difficult day for me. Steph sells stuff by the seashore says some folks think he hit his head on a bench press thing that was in the basement. Got it. Okay.
as he fell backwards and he struck his head, it was clearly at a very high speed generated by the gravity. The bone, depending on the quality of his bone, the density, then generated forces. There's a certain amount of lateral give, and then you get a linear force going forward. It drives all the way up the clivus and forward into the anterior fossa where his orbital roofs lay. And this is why people like this get what they call raccoon's eyes.
Do you have an opinion whether the brain itself could have caused the orbital fractures?
No. The brain is a soft substance. You could literally put your finger through the brain. We often operate on people fully awake. The brain couldn't possibly cause a fracture. The fracture was caused by the forces generated through that clivus, that middle bone in the middle of his base of the skull.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not the brain in any way could have caused these orbital fractures?
The answer is absolutely not.
I don't think that's being argued, is it?
In your study of the records and photographs and in your experience treating these types of injuries, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether or not a person would remain conscious or would be immediately unconscious after the impact of the ground?
Well, it's impossible to know whether he became immediately unconscious, but his injuries were very substantial, and it's more probable than not that at some point he quickly became unconscious and was unable to do functional activities.
What does functional activities mean?
The ability to, get himself up and about would be one of the functional activities.
Would he be able to lock the screen on his phone?
The ability to call for help would be a very significant cortical function. And that's why I was talking about, that there's a variation on the theme from a simple concussion to a severe concussion like this.
If a person does not have functional abilities because they are rendered unconscious, does their body, could it still move?
Yes, this is the interesting thing about our brain. So the cortex, which is the top portion of your brain, can get separated from your brainstem functionally. And what happens then is that your body is not acting autonomically, meaning vegetative. So why does that happen? We think it's because as we were a caveman, and if a caveman became unconscious, as an animal came up to eat it, the animal would touch it. Well, you have these automatic movements. One of them is called decorticating, which is where you draw your arms like this and you throw your feet out. And then a worse neurological situation is when you decerebrate. Now you push your arms out along with your legs. And that would scare off an animal. So we think that over time, genetically, this is what happened to our brains in order to create these. But those kind of movements are not thought processes. In other words, your brain is not telling you, oh, you have pain, go ahead and decorticate or decerebrate. It's an automatic movement in response to pain.
I want you to take us back now to
Well, I would respectfully disagree with that analysis. Your brain is telling your body what to do. You're just not aware of it. I believe that would be the more apt description, because your brain runs all the things. So your brain is always telling your body what to do unless you are, as they say, brain dead. Jesus. I have a GED. I just want you guys to know that. I have a good enough diploma.
after the fall. Would Mr. O'Keefe, in your study and opinion, have died immediately?
No.
Can you share? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll tell it. There is very few things that you head injury where you would die, quote, immediately. So if I took a knife and stabbed you in the back of your neck right below your skull and I drove it through your brainstem, you would probably die immediately. If I shot you below your ear and went through and through below your ear and shot through your brainstem, you would die immediately. But traumatic head injuries, you would not die immediately. It's a process. And it's a process of a combination of things. Brain swelling, which takes a while to develop, decreased blood flow to your brain because you're getting swelling, and ultimately death of the brainstem that controls your heart and your breathing. And so this is why there's a whole big issue about brain death. You know, when is someone brain dead? Because it's not instant and it can take a long time to be conceived. In these injuries that are very severe that we took care of, there was a high mortality rate. In the linear skull fractures, it was about 67%. But it took time for them to die. It could take days to weeks to months. And also, these people got to shock trauma, so it was a while, whether it was hours, before they were even starting to be taken care of, and yet they weren't dead yet. That's why I don't think it was immediate.
Was there any other observations you made about Mr. O'Keefe or his body that support your opinion that he didn't die immediately?
Hold on. Sarah says, Jen Louis referring to the autonomic or somatic nerve system. Autonomic is reflexes and somatic is voluntary, like writing. Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Well, the medical examiner took pictures of his periorbital area and diagnosed raccoon's eyes. So raccoon's eyes occur because there's leakage through the orbital fractures into the periorbital space. Normally, it takes about 24 to 48 hours to develop. It has been noted as early as 1 to 3 hours, which would make it not immediate.
Could we please have Exhibit 14? Dr. Wolf, could you share with us what you see here in this picture?
So right here, you can see the black and blue that sort of configures, if he had his eyes open, like what we describe as raccoon's eyes, right? And that's not caused by direct trauma to his eyelids. It's caused by what I described as the basilar skull fracture, which went to the anterior fossa, which is right over the orbit here, inside, with leakage of blood products into that periorbital area.
You mentioned that starts or takes at least 1 to 3 hours to begin?
Minimally, yes.
Can you take that down, please? If Mr. O'Keefe had been brought to a trauma center or emergency room, what would the process be in your experience?
Well, he would have been intubated if he wasn't intubated in the field. One of the first things you need to do in a head injury is control the airway. Why? 2 reasons. 1, you want to have enough oxygen going to the brain to feed it. And 2,
This is where I'm at with it, Neat Noodle. Neat Noodle says, I think this guy is fine. He's just stating facts, not moving the needle either way, in my opinion. Yes, I agree. He's not moving the needle either way for me either. I do agree that John's head injury was severe. Okay. And I don't think that that's actually in dispute. I think what's in dispute is what caused that head injury. And I notice that the way that Brennan is asking the question is about falling backwards, right? But falling backwards, how, Brennan? How did he fall backwards? He's very clearly avoiding the use of the word vehicle, car, and struck.
You want to keep the carbon dioxide down because that causes increased intracranial pressure if it elevates. So you want to constrict the blood vessels a little bit. Then he would have had a CT scan immediately in order to assess whether he has a surgical head injury, meaning he needs to go to the operating room to evacuate something, or not. During that process, he's obviously going to be getting medication to decrease the brain swelling. And from there, you make decisions based on his neurological function and what you're, capable of doing to, spare the brain from the rest of the injuries that will result. One of the things that occurs with contusions is a great medical term is they can blossom, which means they can get bigger. And if they get bigger, they might require surgical intervention to decrease the pressure as well as the volume of the blood that's destroying brain. And so you do serial CT scans in these patients over time, anywhere from every 6 to 12 hours to on a daily basis, depending on what the case-by-case, production of blossoming is occurring.
You mentioned that about 2/3 of your patients who suffer this injury pass?
Correct. What we saw is that in the patients that suffered linear clavicle fractures, 2/3 of them ultimately went on to die, and 1/3 lived.
Is there commonality on how they pass?
One of the common reasons they passed is if they trapped a major vessel in one of the fractures, they would get a significant brainstem infarct, meaning a stroke, meaning lack of blood flow to a very significant portion of their brainstem. And so that was one of the causes of death that ultimately we understood. And then the others died from the increased intracranial pressure that drove the brainstem down through the foramen magnum.
Did you review any materials that talked about or identified Mr. O'Keefe's body temperature when he was treated?
As I recall, his core temperature was 80 when he was found.
Is that significant in the process and development of his injury from the moment he fell and hit his head until his ultimate passing?
Well, hypothermia, if you define hypothermia, it starts at 95 degrees. Your core temperature is usually about 98, 98.6. 95 is very mild hypothermia. When you get to 82 degrees, you're in severe hypothermia. What happens when you're hypothermic, and I'm a neurosurgeon, but I can tell you that you get into multiple organ failure. Your heart starts to have problems. It can have arrhythmias. You're not breathing. And ultimately, at hypothermia, you also become unconscious and go into a coma-like state. Below 80 degrees, you're probably going to die. So all I can tell you, it wasn't helpful that he had a significant head injury and that he was then found hypothermic.
Is it uncommon, in your experience, for people that suffer this injury to pass within 5 hours?
Well, none of the patients we treated died within 5 hours, but it also didn't mean that we didn't realize that they were going to be in a potentially vegetative state. When someone's hypothermic, you have to warm them up in order to establish a clinical status, meaning you can't declare someone dead with a temperature of 80. You have to warm them up slowly, appropriately, and then reevaluate where they are clinically.
I've asked you questions about whether you had an opinion about Mr. O'Keefe and when he died. I want to ask it in the form of a formal opinion. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty whether Mr. O'Keefe died immediately or within 15 minutes?
No, I don't think he died immediately. Neither the hypothermia nor this kind of head injury would kill you immediately in any clinical experience I have.
Dr. Wolf, thank you.
All right.
Let me have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Thank you. May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Morning, Doctor. I don't think we've had the pleasure of meeting.
Hang on, I have something to show you guys. I just love this picture. Hold on, let me show it to you. Give me just a sec. Hey, Mr. Cattell. That's Bobby Alessi when he was young. I think Mr. Alessi was very handsome when he was young. I really do. And you guys know how I feel about Mr. Alessi. So there you guys go. That's a young picture of him. I saw this yesterday or the day before. It was yesterday on the Twitter X's, on the X Twitters, but I forgot to download it and show you guys. And Tess sent it to me. So thank you, Tess. Yes, it's Bobby now. I've been hanging out with Mr. Alessi for 20 days now. I feel like he can call me Jen and I can call him Bobby. All right, so let's see this cross. I heard it's great. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to listen to the glass expert or the glass expert, the glass testimony, because frankly, I think it's a big, huge nothing burger. None of the glass was, I just think it's a big fat waste of time, and I'm not going to waste yours or my time. I listened to a little bit of that yesterday, and I couldn't have possibly rolled my eyes any harder. And I'm not going to put us through that again. So here we go.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sir, can you just describe, you started to do it a little bit on direct, a typical day for you?
I wake up at 4:15 in the morning. I go to my center. I set up patients with frames for their either radiosurgical procedures or stereotactic craniotomies. I go home. I make cappuccino for my wife at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I get back to work at 6:30 and move on. I have patients that I'm operating on, and I have patients that I'm seeing through the day.
And what type of patients and what type of work? Just in a typical day. What are you doing? What type of patients and what do you do?
It varies. I mean, I see patients with brain tumors. I see patients with hydrocephalus, which is water in their brain. I see pediatric brain tumors. I see subacute and chronic subdural hematomas, post-traumatic. I see patients with strokes that are being misdiagnosed. I see patients with cancer, metastatic disease. I used to see patients with cervical problems. I stopped doing that 2 years ago. I don't know what else you want me to tell you.
No, that's great. And is that typical day, typical of the type of days you've had for the past month, past few years? Is it generally, without specifics, is it generally?
Correct.
So none of your typical days, none of the past typical months have involved forensic pathology, have they? You haven't acted as a forensic pathologist.
I am. If you could have asked that question, very straightforward. I am not a forensic pathologist. I'm a brain surgeon.
Right. And you don't perform autopsies, correct, sir? You're a brain surgeon.
Correct. In other words, I see more brains than the forensic pathologist.
Right. And is it correct to say that the brains that you see are of living people?
Correct.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is to go to a different part of the head than was discussed, but sticking with the decedent.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the last word.
I'm sorry, the topic is going to be Mr. O'Keefe, the decedent in this matter, sir. You testified about raccoon eyes. The medical term for that, sir, is ecchymosis, right?
Correct.
And ecchymosis, raccoon eyes, does not cause a laceration to form on an eyelid, does it?
No.
Are you aware that Mr. O'Keefe had a laceration to the outside area of his right upper eyelid?
I am aware that the ME described that. Yes, sir.
Now, could, Your Honor, I'm going to, with Your Honor's permission, ask to publish what is already in evidence in a moment.
Okay.
Mr. Wolk.
What exhibit number, Mr. Alessi?
We're going to, 165, Your Honor.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Wolf, have you seen this photo depiction before today?
I believe I have.
Is it correct that that injury on the upper right eyelid is caused by the application of force directly to that area of the front of the head, again, namely the upper eyelid?
That's possible, yes.
Is it more than possible? Is it probable that that injury was caused by the application of force directly to that area of the front of his head?
Well, an easy answer to that would be is that that's not part of the periorbital ecchymosis.
Thank you, sir. That was exactly going to be my next question. This injury is unrelated to any of what you've been describing, the fall backwards, the force transfer inside the skull, the, as you described it, the dura, the cerebral spinal fluid, all of that dynamic that you so ably described on your direct examination. This injury has nothing to do with that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you for answering my questions, Dr. Wolf. A pleasure again. No more questions at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Any brief follow-up on that?
No, thank you.
All right, Dr. Wolf, you're all set, so you can get out of here.
Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Brennan?
May we have a moment to inquire of our next witness?
Sure. And while I see counsel and sidebar jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch.
All right, we can feel free to skip. Skip. Okay, we're going to go to the cross-examination of the forensic tech or the evidence technician because...
So, jurors, you may realize that that went quicker than we thought. So.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you guys why. I don't really think that the whole I think the glass situation is much ado about nothing. I feel like, you know, if we're going to watch something, let's just watch where it let's watch where the testimony, let's see if her testimony can stand up to the cross-examination. That's basically what I'm getting at here. I don't want to waste you guys' time. I just appreciate you being here. I definitely needed this distraction. My little granddaughter's undergoing an echocardiogram, and my daughter is nervous. My son-in-law's nervous. I'm nervous. My husband's nervous. We're all nervous, and I need a distraction. And if I get a little talky too much today, it's because of that. So just please, that's not how, I mean, I'm talky anyway, but not like this. So just, you know, please excuse me. And by the way, I think we can do better than 17 likes. Come on, you guys, help me out. Here we go.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Hanley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Hanley, when we left off, you were discussing the comparative analysis you did between item 7-18.18, Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, and item 3-1.
I want to ask you real quick about
consistent microspec data.
Again, if you could just remind the jury as far as the microspec data.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hanley.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you again. We met about a year ago. First things first, you were just talking about some plastic pieces in 7-18.8, correct?
It was 7-18.18.
0.18. I left a 1 out. 7-18.18. We're dealing with a lot of numbers. I'm going to see if we can cut through that here in a second. First of all, you indicated that you were doing a comparative analysis in different, sort of different categorical ways, using microscopy, using the microspec, using the FTIR. I think you also use the FTIR in that as well.
Yes.
And you indicated that your analysis concluded with those pieces could have come from the same source, from the source in 3-1, the taillight. But you're not conclusively saying they did, correct?
It could have come from, they could have a common origin, or it could have come from another source with the same characteristics.
Right. So in other words, another way to say that, Ms. Hanley, is it may have come from the taillight, may not have.
It's a possibility.
Okay. I also want to ask you real quick about the taillight manufacturer. You were shown an exhibit, I think it's exhibit 200, and I think we have that available. With the court's permission, we don't have to cut the lights. I think the lighting is just fine. This is exhibit, or a photograph of exhibit 200 that you saw just a second ago. Quick question about that. In your inspection of that taillight, it's true, is it not, that is manufactured entirely of plastic or plasticine pieces. There is no glass in that taillight, correct?
I have to check my notes. I don't think I noted any glass.
Okay. So in other words, you didn't note any glass inherent in the manufacture of that taillight. It's basically plastic.
Yeah, I think most of the parts were plastic. I'm not 100% sure if the entire thing was plastic. There may have been other material, but portions were plastic.
But you certainly didn't see any glass inherent in the manufacture process.
I'd have to double check my notes, but I don't think I did.
Check your notes then.
Check our notes.
Yes, Judge Bev, this is the only time I agree that it might be a good idea for you to interject here. Let this lady check her notes, for the love of Pete.
Why don't you?
Yes, check
Are
your
your
notes.
in front of you?
Yes.
With the court's permission.
Sure.
Yes, check your notes. Too bad they don't have the Control F function on the notes where you could just go for it. You know, just search for it like that without having to read for 11 billion years. Oh, here we go.
Okay, so I did not make any notation that I noted portions that were glass.
Great. Final point before we get into the actual analysis. On any of the glass, I want to shift gears to just the glass material that you analyzed and that you looked at and you inspected. You saw no blood, no skin, no biological material, no tissue, human tissue or otherwise, on any of those pieces that you inspected, did you?
Upon examination of those items, making observations of those types of material, that's not my area of expertise. I don't think I noted anything that was maybe consistent with that.
So in other words, even though you're not...
Oh, for fuck's sake. Do you mean, okay, I think what she's trying to say is, I don't typically, that's not my field of expertise. We heard her say that. I think but what he's asking you, ma'am, is, oh boy, Jen, that pause game though, is, did you note anything that could have been potentially any of those things? Blood, skin, hair, yada, yada, whatever. She might be very, very good at her job and very, very skilled and adept, but she is not great at testifying. I think we can all agree with that. No matter how you feel one way or the other about Karen Reed's innocence, guilt, or whatnot, I think we can all agree she needs to testify a little better. She ain't great at it. I'm going to give her, My Google review would probably be, I want to be nice. So 3 stars, that's it. That's all. Here we go.
In the bio material expert section of the lab, you certainly would have noted if there was skin or biological material or obvious blood on glass pieces. You were looking at them in many cases through a stereo microscope, correct?
Yes, I would have made note of observations of anything that I would have noted on the surface.
Great, and you did not, because you didn't see anything that was suggestive of that, correct?
I think I just made note, I have to check each item, but I think I did note that there was some dirt debris on some of the items.
But not biological material.
I did not note anything that would be maybe consistent with that.
Great, thank you. I want to talk about the comparisons that you did. And you'll forgive me, I'm a visual learner. So I'd like to talk about it in 4 categories.
Okay.
Linear categories. Category 1, item 3-2. Category 2, item 3-3. Category 3, item 7-12. Category 4, item 7-14. 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, 7-14. Can we talk about them in those particulars?
Sure.
Okay. 3-2 was the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm going to use the word cup rather than glass for obvious reasons. You could get confused by that. So when I say the cup, do you know what I'm talking about?
Item 3-2.
Great. 3-3 are the 5 items that were found on the bumper, claimed to have been found on the bumper by MSP or Crown. Okay?
Yes.
5 items, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Correct.
Item 7-12 are 9 items, glass items, that were recovered at 34 Fairview by Trooper Buchanan in an evidence envelope, correct?
So sustained as to who they were recovered from?
Sure. Did you receive the items along with an evidence envelope?
I need to double check if it was an envelope, but I received it packaged.
Okay. And the packaging normally, under normal circumstances, the packaging comes with labels that gives you reference about where things came from. For instance, when Mr. Lally asked you, were you aware or did you become aware that items were claimed to have been found on the bumper? You didn't actually find those items, but that was the description you were given, correct?
That was the description of the item in our limb system.
Okay. And going back to 7-12, that's our 3rd category, was that described as 9 pieces of glass that were found at 34 Fairview by a sergeant by the name of Buchanan? Or do you recall that?
I am not sure who recovered them.
Well, what it said on the evidence envelope, that's what I'm asking.
I would have to check my photos to see if it says that.
We'll get to that in just a second, but fair enough. 7-12, 9 items, A, B, C, D, E, and if my memory serves, I, K, and L.
And I'd have to refer to my notes to.
Can you please?
Yes.
I'm so tired of you.
So the 9 pieces of glass from 7-12 were labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, I, K, and L.
Great. And then finally, what was in 7-14, that's an easy one, 1 piece of glass.
That's correct.
Okay.
Henry, I'm
Madam Mayor,
so
approach.
glad you got that because I was thinking the exact same thing. Stephanie Lazarus, I need to check my pictures. It was 100 years ago.
If I could, Ms. Hanley, I'm going to hand you photographs photographs that should be two photographs of the exact same thing. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
I've never seen. I did not take this photo.
Understood.
So I'm not. I haven't seen them, so I don't know.
So I'm asking you to look. I know you haven't seen that photo. Does it look like the cup?
It looks consistent with the cup.
Okay. Just gonna set this to the side for a second. Take a look at the second photo. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photo?
So I did not take this photo. It appears to be a photo of a container that another analyst took a photo of item 7-12.
And item 7-12 once again included plastic pieces and 9 glass pieces, correct?
Correct.
Do you see the evidence label on the very top of that evidence envelope?
I'm not sure which label you're talking about.
The one under the red tape.
Yes.
Does that appear to be a label marker that's done to maintain chain of custody?
So I think that label. Sorry.
Sure, can we bring these over to the side?
Sure. Marked for identification as triple G. I was asking you about what has now been marked as triple H. If you'll just look at that, what I'm most interested in is, do you see a name, a trooper's name, in the middle of that evidence bag?
Yes, I do.
Is that Buchanan?
It looks like it says that, yeah.
Okay. And just so we're clear, that bag is associated with 7-12 of your analysis. The item 7-12, correct?
Yes, again, I didn't take this photo, but I have, yeah.
I realize that. It says 7-12
Yeah.
right on the photo.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. That's all I need. Taking a look at what's been marked as triple I for identification. Do you see a name associated with that evidence bag?
Yes.
What name is that?
It's actually a little hard to read. It looks like it could say Trooper Proctor.
Okay, and that is associated with 7-14, our fourth category, correct?
It is labeled as, excuse me, 7-14.
Thank you. And finally, does that, which has been marked as, for identification at least, as triple J, does that appear to be the contents of that bag, which is a single piece of glass in 7-14? This appears to be the photo that the analyst prior to me took of item 7-14. And that would be analyst Valier.
Correct.
You see her initials there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So the four categories, just so we're clear and we can stop using so many numbers because they can get confusing. 3-2 is the cut, right?
Yes.
3-3 is the bumper glass, correct?
That is correct.
7-12 is the Buchanan glass, correct? You just looked at it.
Yes.
Okay. 7-14 is the Proctor glass, the single piece, correct?
Correct.
So when I make reference to those items by those names, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yes.
Hesitant.
No, I just, I'm just used to referring to them to the item numbers, but I will try to stay with you.
My brain will melt if we continue that way.
Can she do it both, Mr. Jackson?
Sure. Any way that you wish. I have another document that I would like to approach with, if I could, with the court's permission.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd like you to take a look at that. You've got a copy of this? Have you ever seen that before, or a variation of it?
Yes.
Okay. Saw it last year, correct? Or something close to it last year?
Yeah, it looks consistent.
Okay.
I'm sorry, may we approach on this?
Okay. If there are any others, Mr. Jackson, why don't we bring all the...
Yeah, just bring it all because she's Louise. Here we go. I got something else to show you guys. Tess, are you in here? After this, after they get back from the sidebar, I want to show you guys something, but I need Tess to help me with it. I'm going to email you something, Tess, okay? If you're in here. Maybe you can help me find this.
Ms. Hanley, if I could ask you very briefly, I want to go through this chalk with you for a moment. Do you recognize something on the left, looking at the first category? Do you see 3-2?
Yes.
How is that described?
It's described as a cup.
Okay, and you see that there's a photographic representation of the cup just above it, correct?
It looks consistent with...
Okay. Moving to the second category. What category is that?
It's item 3-3.
And 3-3, first of all, there's a photograph above it. Do you see that?
Yes.
It appears to be of a bumper, correct?
Yes.
You didn't take that picture.
I did not.
Okay, let's look down beneath it. You indicated that there were 5 items in 3-3, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Correct.
Do you see A, B, C, D, and E represented in that category on this chalk?
I do see A, B, C, D, E categorized, yes.
Great. Under A, you previously testified that the bumper glass sub A in 3-3 did not match the cup, correct?
That's correct.
Did not match anything in 7-12?
Sorry, just give me one moment. That's correct.
And did not match anything in 7-14?
That's correct.
And you see those represented by sort of the international symbol for negative, correct? A circle with a line through it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Under subcategory B, glass B, or item 3-3B, did not match the cup, did not match 7-12, did not match 7-14.
That's correct.
Is that accurately represented on the chalk?
Yes.
Finally, with regard to E as an echo in that same item, 3-3, you see that there is a green indication that glass recovered by Proctor does match, or did match in your analysis, or was consistent with the item in 7-14, correct?
It was consistent microscopically and instrumentally.
Does that accurately reflect that finding on this chalk?
Yes.
Okay, now turning to category 3. There were 9 pieces of glass that you looked at, correct?
Correct.
A through F, I, K, and L. Is that right?
If I could just reference my report to make sure.
Of course.
I have a visual that might help with this that I was thinking we should put over while she's talking about it so you guys can see.
Yes, those are the correct letters.
And A, B, C, D, F, and K all matched the cup, correct?
Again, I would just need to confirm with my report.
Take your time.
Yes, so A, B, C, D, F, and K
All matched the cup.
had a physical match to 3-2, the cup.
Is that accurately represented on this chart? With green.
Yes.
And E is in Echo, I is in India, and I think that's L is in Lima, did not match the cup. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, is that accurately represented on this chart?
Yes.
And finally, the last category, 7-14, that is the single piece of glass that was recovered by Trooper Proctor. That did not match the cup, and it did not match anything in 7-12, correct? And if you need to check your notes, feel free.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that accurately represented on the chart?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admission with the amendment that the court indicated at sidebar of triple K.
Okay, I'm going to allow it in.
205. You know, hold on, I got to say something really quick because Steph sells stuff by the seashore reminded me of something. So to me, okay, so Seth sells stuff by the seashore says it's just more and more baffling every day how this ever went to trial. This whole thing has really given me great doubt in our justice system. Lesson learned. Do not get arrested ever for anything. Actually, the city of Canton reminds me of the city of Pantego in Texas. The city in Pantego is a city where you do not want to even do 1 mile over the speed limit. Everybody that is from that area knows, because a lot of times you got to drive through Pantegos to get to other places, like it's on the outskirts of Arlington. So you have to sometimes, you try to avoid going through Pantego if at all possible. But like it's just one of those places. And Canton kind of reminds me of Pantego, for real, for real. Like you just don't want to do anything. Don't want to be riding dirty. You don't want to be going over the speed limit. You don't want to do nothing ever that would have to get you involved with law enforcement in any way, shape, or form at all, ever, ever.
Yeah.
Your Honor, the court indicated that it would like to see us before anything's published to the jurors.
Okay, come on over for a second. Actually, have those have those been done?
It has been done,
Okay.
and I was going to explain the sidebar.
All right, then come on over.
Oh, here we go. Let's go to the sidebar. Judge Shabev loves a sidebar. We don't love a sidebar because we don't get to hear.
205.
Thank you. Request permission to publish.
Yes.
Before Mr. Jackson publishes that, Kelly wants to know, Bindi, what you know about riding dirty? None. None at all.
Ms. Hanley, you see the chalk that's been, or actually what's been marked as Exhibit 205 in evidence on the screen?
Yes.
Is that consistent with what you and I were just talking about at the witness stand?
Yes.
If you'll direct your attention to the screen on the right, just because it's a little easier and I think the laser pointer shows up a little better. Do you see the 4 categories represented in this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. So 3-2, I'm going to go over it very quickly one more time, just visually. 3-2 on the left is the cup, correct?
Yes.
3-3 represents the 5 pieces of glass of what we call the bumper glass, A, B, C, D, and E, correct?
Yes.
7-12 is the 9 pieces of glass recovered by Trooper Buchanan at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And finally, 7-14 is the glass, single piece of glass recovered by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes.
Taking these one by one, just so everybody see? Taking these one by one, looking at starting with the bumper glass, category 2. Piece A did not match the cup, anything in 7-12 or anything in 7-14, correct?
That's correct.
Piece B did not match the cup, did not match anything in 7-12, did not match anything and 714, correct?
That's correct.
And moving over to category 3, there were some matches in these 9 items, 6 of them, A, B, C, D, F, and K, correct?
Yes.
But what those matched, Ms. Hanley, were the cup, nothing on the bumper, correct?
Correct.
And what didn't match the cup were E, I, and L. Is that right?
That's correct.
Moving back to category 2, however, there was one thing, item E, that did match something in this series of categories. Isn't that right?
Not a physical match, but instrumentally there was consistency.
All right. And this was an item, the only piece of bumper glass, the only piece of bumper glass to match anything else in your analysis. Matched what? What was consistent with what?
Item 3-3, piece E, was consistent in physical and instrumental properties with the sample that I took from item 7-14.
Which is the single piece of glass recovered by Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes.
But not a single piece of glass, nothing that you analyzed coming from that bumper matched the cup, did it? Nothing.
Physical match comparison, there was no physical match comparison to the cup.
Well, now, how can that be? So basically...
Are we done with this, Mr. Jackson?
No, Bev, we're not done with this. Basically, what she's saying is, okay, the magical, I can drive all over Hell's Half Acre, snow melting off in the Sally Port, all the things, glass on the bumper, only matched the glass found in the street by Michael Proctor. Wow. So they have not tied the cocktail glass to the vehicle. Great job, Commonwealth.
We can take this down, Your Honor. Your Honor, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Lally?
Yes, come on, Mr. Lally. Let's waste some more time in proving nothing, which, okay. To be fair, it's not that he's not proving anything, okay? He's basically proving that there's no connection between the cocktail glass and the bumper glass, okay? So he is proving that, but that's not what he's supposed to be proving. That's not what they need to prove. At this point, and I want you guys to keep this in mind, okay? We are on day 20. That's 20, okay? And the Commonwealth has yet to connect John O'Keefe's death with the car, okay? Like, I'm feeling like I'm about to have a Kathy Bates moment. He didn't get hit by the cock-a-doodle car. Only, she says he didn't get out. But that's how I feel right now. Like, what are you doing, Commonwealth? How are we this far along in a trial? And that's the charge that carries the highest sentence. This is the most important thing that you've got to prove. And you're on day 20 and ain't proven it yet. Yikes on bikes. This is kind of scary. All right, Lally, let's see what you got real quick. I got a little time.
Now, Ms. Hanley, as far as
you
asked some questions on cross-examination.
I forgot something. I forgot something. The other thing that it proved is all the glass that was found by Proctor was connected to each other. Good job.
Examination about biological pieces or tissue or things being on the glass, and you referenced that that was done in another unit, correct?
Yes, if that type of examination was needed, that would be done in a different unit.
I'm going to allow that, but next question.
Which unit would that be conducted in?
Objection.
So the objection sustained. You need more, Mr. Lally, before you move on.
Now, as far as the chalk that you were just presented, as far as the 4 photographs that were depicted in there, have you ever seen any of those 4 photographs before?
No.
Do you know specifically who or where any of the items 3-2, 3-3, 7-12, or 7-4 were physically recovered from?
I just have the description that's put in the LIMS system when it's submitted to the lab.
And do you know that
hold
3-2, the
Mr. Lally, why does that matter? At this point, whether she knows where those items were found, recovered, or by whom doesn't matter, okay? Really. I know why Mr. Jackson wants it in, okay? But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is, and he's noting it for the jury, it's for the jury's benefit. But at the end of the day, the Commonwealth has failed to connect the glass that was recovered from the bumper, the magic glass that went all over Hell's Half Acre, and didn't fall off. You have failed to connect that glass to the cocktail glass that was recovered from underneath John O'Keefe. So you need to stop playing with these people, stop playing with me, stop wasting time. She's clearly nervous. She can't help you. Get her off the stand. I'm over it.
The drinking glass was recovered by the Canton Police Department on January 29th, 2022.
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know that item 3-3, the bumper glass, was recovered by Ms. Maureen Hartnett from your lab on February 1st, 2022?
Sustained.
Do you know that each of the 4 items were recovered by different people on different dates at different locations?
No approach.
Yes.
Come on, Lally. Why are you playing? You can ask that witness 11 billion different times, even if Judge Bev had allowed this in. Yes. Maureen is the one that discovered, I'm using quotes, you can't see it, air quotes. She's the one that found the glass on the thing. But why was she called over there to look at the bumper in the first place? Let's think about that for a moment. Who decided that she should come out and check out the vehicle? Spoiler alert. I believe it was Proctor. Because wasn't he in charge of of assigning the tasks? Yeah. Shut up, Lally. This is for you, Lally.
No, you shut up! Don't talk to me! Don't talk to me, criminal!
All right. I'll be serious now.
And Ms. Hanley, from your conclusions that you testified about before, you found that the item 3-2, the drinking glass, was consistent with 6 different pieces from item 7-12 that were found in the roadway outside of 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That's correct.
And you also found that piece E from item 3-3, the bumper glass, was consistent with the single piece from item 7-14 that was found in the roadway outside of 34 Fairview Road. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you also found that items from 7-18.18, the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, were consistent with the item 3-1, the taillight housing, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained as to form.
Now, as far as the chalk that you were presented with on cross-examination, was there anything in there about item 7-18.18 or item 3-1, either the taillight housing or the debris from Mr. O'Keefe's clothing?
No, there was not.
Nothing further.
Anything?
Very briefly. So in sum, not a single piece of glass on that bumper can be connected to that cup, correct?
There was no physical match to the pieces that I compared for physical match from the bumper. There was no physical match to the glass cup 3.2.
Thank you.
So in other words, if let's just hear me out. If Trooper Proctor planted anything, he wasn't good enough at planting things because he planted the wrong glass. So he's not just a lying liar face who tells lies, but he's also incompetent. He can't even frame people correctly. Way to go, Trooper Proctor.
Another way of saying that is not a single piece of glass that you analyzed on that bumper matched that cup. Correct?
Sustained.
But the one piece of glass that did match something came from the same source, or was consistent with coming from the same source as the single piece of glass recovered on the possession of or bagged by Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
It was consistent with item 7-14.
That's all.
All right, Ms. Hanley, you are all set. I'm going to see counsel for a minute. Feel free to stand up and stretch.
All right. I have something I want to show you because I'm a little curious about it. Hold on.
Discuss this case with anyone.
Yeah, okay, but Judge Bev, just shush. All right, so, bruh, hold on. Okay, so yesterday I was scrolling through the. Let me just be honest about what I was doing. I entered a doom scroll. Okay, that's just where you scroll and scroll and scroll, and eventually this came up. Okay, now the description says that it was posted March 20th of 2025. Oh my God, I just realized it. Never mind. Okay, so I wanted you guys, I don't know why I thought this was yesterday. I don't even know, but I just thought this was interesting and funny to listen to. Hold on, where is it at? Cripes. There it is. This is old. I realize now that we're in May. I'm told you guys, my brain is a problem recently. I'm very distracted. It's a problem. I understand it. But because there was so much, we talked about Shannon 1N Burgess and his testimony. This has to do with expert testimony. And basically what Alan Jackson wants is he wants an expert investigator to come in and testify about how not good this investigation was conducted. And I just thought it was funny. And I cannot believe that I didn't realize that it was that we're in May and that literally the description says March. So please excuse my I don't know where my brain is at, but I just thought it was apropos given the fact that we had so much kerfuffle with the whole situation respective to experts. And I just thought it was good. So we're just going to listen to this real quick. It's not long. And then here it is. Then we'll be done.
I gently disagree with Mr. Brennan. He indicates that we want to use an expert to bolster our argument. There's another word for that, or another phrase for that. It's called presenting a defense for someone charged with murder. He indicates, well, what are we going to do? This guy's going to get up there and testify. What am I supposed to do? Call a bunch of other Canton PD officers to talk about how great their investigative techniques were. Yeah, there's another word for that. It's called rebuttal. That's what you're supposed to do. And then he says, well,
you wouldn't be objecting if they called somebody in rebuttal to reinforce a great investigation?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Mr. Brennan said, what if I called a Massachusetts state police officer to say that this was the best investigation ever? I have 2 words. Do it. Do it. I'd love that. I'd love a shot at that.
Okay, so I said let's take personal.
That's not an invective. That's not a personal shot at Mr. Brennan. I'm just saying, do it. You want to call in another expert? That's a classic battle of the experts. That's fine. I'll put Mike Easter up against any expert they want to call. But the reality is, Your Honor, we're entitled to present a defense. And part of that defense, the Bowden defense, is the adequacy of the investigation. And there's no question that a proper homicide investigation is not something within...
I don't know. So if you can give me a case site for that, all right, that expert test.
All right, Judge Bev, excuse me just a minute. This is a pretrial hearing that took place in March. I don't know why I thought that this came from May, because clearly in the description, you guys, if you look at it, it does say, I'll show you. Right here in bold font. How I missed this, I do not know, but it's right there for everybody, including your girl, to have read. I just thought it's interesting that I'm waiting for this to come up. That's what I wanted to show you guys. All right, here we
Testimony
go.
regarding a Bowden defense. I've never seen it. I've never seen it in research or anything. So I'd like a case site.
There are certainly cases outside the jurisdiction.
Yeah, Massachusetts case. If not, you can give me the outside cases, but I don't believe there's a Massachusetts case where this has been done.
We have searched and searched for a specific case in Massachusetts. To my finding, to our finding, there isn't one directly on point, but there are plenty, there's a myriad cases outside the jurisdiction where investigators are called consistently, especially on behalf of the defense, to talk about adequacy of an investigation. That is an expert field, one that's utilized throughout the country.
I need some authority, and the more persuasive the authority, the better chance you have at this. Okay?
Sure.
So I'm very curious. I'll finish watching it on my own. I won't bug you guys with it, but I'm very, I need to know how this got resolved and whether, like the audacity of Brennan saying, what if I called 11 billion Canton police officers or Massachusetts police officers to say that this was the greatest, best investigation of all time in the history of ever in investigating? I would love it too, Alan Jackson. Please. It would be great. I feel like Bev's not going to allow it in because there's no case law in Massachusetts. But I'd like to remind you, Judge Bev, this is what I think you guys refer to as setting a precedent, right? Nothing has ever been done in Massachusetts until it's actually been done. So I know that you love to say, well, if it's never been done in Massachusetts, it's never going to be done in Massachusetts. But nothing was ever done in Massachusetts until it was. Maybe you should keep that in mind too, Judge Bev, while you're pondering things on your now 5-day long weekend. All right, you guys, that is all that I have for today. I was thinking we would get to talk about Megan Boswell's sentencing hearing, which was supposed to take place today for whatever reason, and a reason unknown to me. That has been rescheduled, and there is no date set yet. So whenever there is a sentencing date scheduled, I'll bring it to you guys. And I got stuff I need to do this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to try to be live because I can't go all the way from now until Tuesday and not talk to you guys. That's like 5 ever. That's too much. So I'll find something for us to do. All right. All right. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon or morning, really. It's only 9:57. That was quick. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys this weekend. Take it easy. Don't work too hard. Thank you guys for being here. If you haven't done so already, give your girl a thumbs up. Hell, give me a thumbs down if you feel I deserve it. I leave it to your good judgment. I'll now talk to y'all later.